You do one movement. If you full squat, you have to lower yourself. You have to stop yourself statically. You have to overcome it concentrically. You have three actions with one energy source. In a box squat, when you lower yourself, sit on the box, you can actually adjust yourself if you want. You can adjust your position and come up. That's why I'm talking about breaking the eccentric concentric chain. So on the way down, I can gather as much energy as possible to jump up. That's why when we get off a box, they can squat so much more. And that's what you want. You want the least amount of weight to make you the strongest. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Play devil's advocate. What benefit does that have for throwers? We are in a position where we are dynamically flexing and having to conceptually come up in the same movement. So what is pausing and repositioning? How does that benefit us? Because we don't stop in the power position and throw.
You have to stop somewhere in a still position. It builds explosive power. I trained Kevin Akins years ago. He threw 70-10. It's still 20 years later, still the high state record. Kevin Akins box squat. I mean, the proof is in the methods. If you want to jump higher, like I talked about yesterday, a guy uses this process. He jumps on a 52-inch box on a regular basis. A fellow jumps on a 59-inch box after following his 550 box squat, speed work, 315.8 meters per second. Jumped on a 59-inch box. It builds explosive power. These all came from Europe. These all came from track background. Didn't come from powerlifting. Didn't come from Louie Simmons. It didn't come from Westside Barbell and Culver City. It came from European track and field. When the track and field, when they would tour the United States and they'd stop at Culver City. And I believe that's where board press came from in America, box squats came from, and many, many other things. I mean, if you're going to do something for explosive power, like we do, we're going to do something that works the best, not second best. That's why we do it. Yes, you're first.
Determine the correct height for box squatting, and how does that change over time?
Well, we do a lot of low box squats, but I mean, basically in a power meet, this is the top of your knee, of course, and this crease here, this has to be slightly lower than the top of your knee. So that's how we position it. We also position it like, let's say Phil squatted right here in a meet. All right? As the weights as we get going, we actually take the feet out. You'll end up slightly above parallel, where you take out an inch mat sometimes, if you're real flexible, but it isolates the power right here. Squatting is from here to here. That's where most jumping comes from. You know, posterior chain and then the hips. Yes?
What's your rep scheme?
Doubles.
How many sets of doubles?
We'll do as many as 12 sets of doubles. That's with no bands or chains, without a contrast method. If you use bands or chains, 10 sets is a lot. 10 sets isn't bad with chain, normally 8 sets with bands, because bands supply the overspeed eccentrics, and eccentrics is where muscular soreness comes from. And it's also like the peak contraction theory every inch of the way. Much like a pec deck, the hardest thing in a pec deck is to start it, all right? The hardest thing in the leg press is to start it. It's easy to end, but with these bands, it's peak contraction all the way.
Okay, so without the bands, what's the percentage of max of the approximately?
Is this for just sports?
Yes.
I would actually train at 50 to 60%. Oh, without, I would train, like I talked about yesterday, if you box squat and establish the record, train at 75, next week 80, next week 85. 3-week pendulum wave, and then roll back. If any of you people are gifted, which I'm sure some of you are or were, you're not going to get any faster after 3 weeks. You're not going to get stronger. You have to use the pendulum wave.
So fourth week, go back?
Go back.
Go back, but then that 75% is higher because you've gotten stronger in those 3 weeks.
Hopefully. You probably should test yourself about every third wave, about every 9th week. Test yourself. Okay? Or what we do is every 4th week we change bars. We may front squat for 3 weeks. Now we have to use a harness. We can't front squat. We use a harness, the bar set here on the throat. Then we may use a safety squat bar for the next 3 weeks. Then we may use a straight bar. And every bar has a record, so the weights are going to change. The key to actually, pardon?
Yeah, you box squatting with a safety bar, Joe?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's no squats in my gym. They're all box squats. I have 9 people over 1,000 pounds, 2 over 11. We lost the world record last weekend, but we had the 220 world record, 10 1/4, 181, 905, 275, 11, 18. No full squats in my gym. It's like a bike. Once you ride it, you can always ride it. Because box squats are so superior over full squatting, there's no, it would be a downward step for us to full squat, so we don't do it. That's why we rely on sled dragging. Yes, sir.
How often do you use bands versus just straight weight versus chains? I mean, how do you kind of cycle that?
Okay, for our gym, we never use straight weight because we're so explosive at the top. It's just not a good thing. It's too easy. We'll use bands 90%, 9 out of 10 workouts. We also use combinations. If I can explain, obviously you do this. We use a lot of chain. My strong guys will use around 300 or 400 pound of chain and plus bands. So when they're coming up, the chain will jump on abruptly. We call it abrupt loading.
Right.
All right. So right below your mini max or your sticking point is going to hit you, and you got to be a complete idiot not to drive right through that. Once you know where something's hard, you're going to drive through it. If the snow's deep, you put your foot on the gas. Same thing with the human body. So we do a lot like that. We also do a lot of stuff where we put a band, of course, around the bar. We also put a second band around the plates. Now this is tough. And see, if you use combinations and if you use chain, you have a 3-stage. You have to get through 3 mini maxes, as it would be. And it teaches tremendous power in whatever position you want to situate the chain. Okay? More questions? Yes?
When you're working, I don't know if you have any out there right now, when you're working with an Olympic lifter, are you still keeping their feet out wide when they're doing the box squats, or are you bringing them in more narrow?
If I had Olympic lifters, we would have gold medals in America. I have the world's strongest gym, bar none. If I had Olympic lifters, I would like to hear the argument why I wouldn't have that. Absolutely. Here's what I told Olympic lifters to do. Train box squats wide, test the squat with a front squat. That's what counts for them. If you look at Nam overseas, the Bulgarian, he routinely front squatted 518. He had a 429 clean and jerk. He had such a vast amount of overpower, and over here, if you get a guy up front, if he cleans 400, he's barely lucky to front squat 400. Is that true? No, there's things called webs, and I'm sure all sports have them. If 3 things that make a clean jerk snatch go up: power clean, power snatch, and a squat. The coefficient's almost exactly the same. You need to push those 3 up. Then you need to do special exercises for the cleans, the snatches, and the squat. That's what they, unfortunately, don't do here. They use very few exercises that will not work. That's the law of accommodation. Read it in any magazine. They'll tell you where they fail. I could tell you this, like we said last night. If we wanted to challenge someone, if they challenge us as close hand squatting, we train wide. And we got some serious strong guys, in gym trunks. It's going to squat around 900 for you. It's going to be ridiculous. Okay? Questions? Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about contrast training like I was talking about last night. I think this fits more into the college, because you guys aren't powerlifters. You're really not weightlifters. You've got because a lot of throwers are stronger than Olympic lifters. And I know it. But it's hard to take the punishment of what we do and do what you do. You can only be good at one thing. Remember, if you're a thrower, you got to be a thrower. I told people, I said, you're not a half-ass, you're a quarter-ass. You're not good at anything. You do a dozen things, you're not good at any of them. So who cares about that? No, if you're the best at any one thing, I give you credit. I can't play ping pong, so the ping pong champion world, I give him credit. So just think like that. Make sure you're training for your sport, not to be an Olympic lifter, not to be a power lifter. You're supposed to be a thrower. So make sure you and your coach get together, push everything toward the throws. Okay? Actually, what I did in 1983 when I broke my lower back for the second time, and I was at my house for 17 weeks with no one saying anything but, gee, when you're not going to lift no more. That's all I ever heard all my life. And I realized I got stronger, but I got slower. That's why I didn't break any records to the point I broke my 5th lumbar vertebrae, want to take out 2 discs, fuse my back, take off bone spurs. And I broke it in 73 as well. All right? That's how I invented the reverse hyper, if you're familiar with that exercise, the machine. Anyhow, I realized that I got slower, so I took a page from Olympic lifting. I started doing dynamic method, developing a fast rate of force development. Here in America, if you want the Olympic lifters to